The Deep Space Monitoring Station Helios wasn't supposed to be interesting. Located in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, it was just another link in humanity's early warning network. Commander Risha Santos had spent 3 years watching endless streams of data, searching for signs of extraterrestrial life. Tonight, everything would change. The first anomaly appeared as a slight fluctuation in the quantum field detectors. "Commander, you might want to see this," called out Lieutenant James Wilson, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. Risha moved from her station, coffee cup still in hand, to peer at the readings. "Could be another quantum echo from Jupiter's magnetosphere," she suggested, but something in her gut told her different. The signal pattern was too regular, too structured. The station's AI, Aria, chimed in with its artificial voice. "Analysis indicates a 99.8% probability of artificial origin. Signal contains embedded data packets with unknown encryption." Risha's coffee cup clattered to the floor. In 15 years of deep space monitoring, no one had ever detected anything close to this clear a sign of intelligent life. Full spectrum analysis, Priority 1. Wilson, notify Earth Command. Initiate First Contact Protocol Alpha. But before they could act, the signal changed. The encrypted data packets began flooding their systems, bypassing security protocols as if they didn't exist. Screens throughout the station flickered to life, displaying images that made Risha's blood run cold. The lunar colony, humanity's pride and home to 10,000 souls, was under attack. Massive crystalline ships, beautiful and terrible, rained destruction upon the dome cities. The footage was live. "They wanted us to see this," Wilson whispered, horror evident in his voice. "They're making us watch." The attackers called themselves the Kryvax. Their message, broadcast simultaneously to every communication device on Earth and its colonies, was simple: humanity was deemed unworthy of existence in their galactic order. Their reason? Human beings' capability for empathy and compassion was considered an evolutionary weakness that needed to be purged. Earth's response was immediate and unified, but futile. The lunar defense platforms, humanity's most advanced weapons, barely scratched the crystalline hulls of the Kryvax ships. Within hours, the lunar colony was silent. In the chaos that followed, Risha made a discovery that would change everything. Hidden within the Kryvax transmission was a second signal, barely detectable beneath the main broadcast. While everyone else focused on the horror unfolding on their screens, she isolated and decoded it. "This isn't just an attack," she announced to the emergency response team on Earth. "It's a test. The Kryvax don't just want to destroy us, they're studying how we react. They're expecting us to break, to turn on each other in panic." Admiral Patel of Earth Command leaned forward in his holoscreen. "Explain." "The secondary signal contains detailed scanning protocols. They're monitoring our communications, our decision-making patterns, our emotional responses. They think they know exactly how we'll react, like a scientist who knows how bacteria will respond to antibiotics." A grim smile crossed the Admiral's weathered face. "Then perhaps it's time we show them how little they understand about human nature." The next 24 hours saw humanity's greatest transformation. Instead of chaos, there was unity. Instead of surrender, there was resolve. The Kryvax had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that compassion made humans weak. They never considered that it might be the source of their greatest strength. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility whose existence was known to only a handful of people, Project Prometheus awakened. Dr. Naomi Takashi, lead researcher of Earth's most classified research program, stood before the assembled military leadership. "For 50 years, we've been studying the quantum nature of consciousness," she explained, her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident on her face. "We discovered something the Kryvax, with all their technological superiority, never could. Human empathy isn't just an emotion, it's a quantum field effect. And we've learned to weaponize it. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Kryvacs had brought their war to humanity's doorstep, confident in their superiority. They thought they were facing a species weakened by its capacity for compassion. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The United Earth Defense Council chamber, buried 2 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, hadn't seen this level of activity since its construction. Representatives from every nation stood shoulder to shoulder, ancient rivalries forgotten in the face of extinction. The holographic display at the center of the room showed the grim reality: the Kryvacs fleet, now numbering 37 crystalline vessels, had taken up positions around the moon. Admiral Patel's voice cut through the murmurs of discussion. "Dr. Takashi, you have 10 minutes to explain Project Prometheus. Make them count." Naomi Takashi stepped forward, her laboratory whites a stark contrast to the military uniforms surrounding her. The quantum interface she wore behind her ear glowed softly as she interfaced with the room's systems. 50 years ago, we discovered that human consciousness generates a quantum field. Not metaphorically, literally. Every human emotion, every act of empathy, creates ripples in the quantum fabric of space-time. The Kryvacs saw this as weakness because their own consciousness doesn't function this way. They evolved as purely logical beings, devoid of emotional quantum resonance. The display shifted, showing complex mathematical models. But here's what they missed: when humans unite in purpose, these quantum fields synchronize. The effect grows exponentially. During moments of great crisis or celebration, when millions of humans focus on the same thing, the combined field becomes powerful enough to affect physical reality. "Are you suggesting we fight alien invaders with feelings, Doctor?" The Chinese representative's tone was skeptical. "No," Naomi replied, her eyes hardening. "I'm suggesting we weaponize humanity's greatest strength. Project Prometheus has developed technology that can amplify and direct these quantum fields. We've kept it hidden because, frankly, we weren't sure humanity was ready for this power." The display changed again, showing a massive underground facility. "Welcome to the Quantum Amplification Network. 108 stations, buried beneath population centers around the globe. Each capable of channeling the quantum resonance of millions of minds into focused energy." Admiral Patel stepped forward. "And you're certain this will penetrate their shields?" "Their shields are designed to stop physical weapons and energy attacks. This isn't either, it's consciousness itself, weaponized. But we need unity. We need humanity thinking, feeling, fighting as one." The Brazilian representative stood. "The Kryvacs broadcast their attack globally. Every human being watched our people die. Trust me, Doctor, unity won't be a problem." The next 12 hours saw the largest coordinated information campaign in human history. The truth about Project Prometheus was revealed to the public, not as a weapon, but as proof of humanity's hidden potential. The response exceeded all predictions. Instead of panic or disbelief, people gathered. In cities, in towns, in refugee centers, anywhere with a screen to watch the ongoing crisis. The quantum monitoring stations recorded unprecedented levels of synchronized emotional response. But the Kryvacs weren't idle. Their ships began methodically destroying Earth's visible defensive infrastructure, satellites, orbital platforms, surface-to-space weapon systems. They were following their standard invasion protocol, eliminating military targets before beginning planetary bombardment. They didn't notice that with each attack, the quantum field surrounding Earth grew stronger. In her command center beneath the Pacific, Naomi watched the readings with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The combined emotional resonance of 8 billion humans, focused on survival and retaliation, was creating quantum effects beyond anything Project Prometheus had ever achieved in testing. "The field is stable," she reported to the Defense Council. "But there's something else happening, something we didn't predict. The quantum resonance is evolving. It's not just amplifying emotions anymore. It's amplifying intentions. Admiral Patel leaned forward. Meaning what, exactly? Meaning that humanity isn't just feeling as one, it's thinking as one. The quantum field is becoming a network, linking human consciousness across the globe. And it's giving us access to capabilities we never knew we had. The first indication that something extraordinary was happening came from civilian reports. People worldwide began reporting shared dreams, flashes of insight into Kryvak's technology, and most surprisingly, an intuitive understanding of how to fight back. The Kryvaks, monitoring Earth's communications, dismissed these reports as desperate fantasy. Their quantum sensors, sophisticated as they were, weren't calibrated to detect the weapon humanity was becoming. They were about to learn that their greatest mistake wasn't in attacking Earth. It was in assuming they understood the limits of human potential.
Raina Blackwood stood at the observation deck of humanity's last outpost on Europa, watching the massive holographic transmission of yet another human defeat in the galactic arena. The alien crowd's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound that had become all too familiar over the past decade since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass, her reflection showing the scars that marked her face, testament to years of special operations missions in Earth's most dangerous corners. But those battles seemed insignificant compared to what she witnessed in the arena broadcasts. The latest human contestant had just fallen to a crystalline being from the Sigma cluster. Like all the others before, they had tried to match alien strength with human strength, alien speed with human speed. And like all the others, they had failed spectacularly. "You're watching again," came a quiet voice behind her. Commander Jackson, her former superior officer, stepped into view. His weathered face carried the same weight she felt in her chest, the burden of knowing humanity was becoming the galaxy's greatest joke. "Someone has to learn from these mistakes," Raina replied, her eyes fixed on the replay of the match. "We keep sending our strongest, our fastest, our most enhanced fighters. But that's not working." Jackson nodded slowly, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on her. "That's why I've recommended you for the next selection trials." Raina turned sharply, her dark eyes narrowing. "Me? I'm not even in the top tier of Earth's fighters anymore." "Not since Dash," she gestured to her left leg, the neural implants visible through her standard issue fatigues. "Exactly," Jackson said, a slight smile crossing his face. "You're not the strongest, or the fastest. But you're something else entirely." The commander pulled up a holographic display, showing Raina's service record. 17 successful missions in impossible conditions. No augmentations except the bare minimum needed after your injury. You've consistently outperformed enhanced operators by using something they've forgotten about, human ingenuity. Raina watched as the footage from her last mission played out, her small team infiltrating a pirate stronghold on Mars, using the environment and clever tactics rather than brute force to accomplish their objective. "The aliens would still laugh," she said quietly. "Let them laugh," Jackson replied. "They've been laughing at us since we joined the Confederation. But they don't understand what makes humans different. We don't need to be the strongest to win. We never have been." Over the next weeks, Raina underwent the selection trials. While other candidates showcased their enhanced strength or cybernetic speed, she demonstrated something else, the ability to adapt, to think differently, to turn weaknesses into strengths. The selection committee watched as she consistently overcame seemingly superior opponents through strategy and unconventional thinking. The final test came in a simulation of an arena match. Her opponent was a training AI designed to mimic the abilities of a Thoraxian warrior, 12 feet of armored chitin and raw power. The other candidates had tried to dodge its attacks, to find weak points in its natural armor. All had failed. Raina took a different approach. She studied the environment, noted how the creature moved, its patterns, its assumptions. Then, rather than trying to defeat it through combat, she used its own strength against it. A carefully timed dodge here, a strategic retreat there, until the massive alien found itself trapped by its own momentum, its powerful strikes becoming its undoing. The selection committee's chamber was silent as she stood before them afterward, her breathing steady, her stance relaxed. The head of the committee, Dr. Patel, looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "You understand what we're asking," she said softly. "If selected, you wouldn't just be fighting for yourself. You'd carry the hopes of our entire species. The weight of every human world would rest on your shoulders." Reyna met her gaze steadily. "With respect, Doctor, that weight is already there. Every time we fail in the arena, every time they laugh at us, we all feel it. At least this way, I can do something about it." The committee deliberated for 3 days. When they emerged, their decision was unanimous. Reyna Blackwood would represent humanity in the galactic arena, not because she was the strongest or the fastest, but because she embodied something else, the human ability to adapt, to overcome, to find victory in the most unlikely places. As she stood in her quarters that night, watching Jupiter's storms swirl in the distance, Reyna touched the scars on her face and remembered every battle, every failure, every lesson learned. The aliens would laugh when they saw her, this small, scarred human with her simple neural implants. But she had learned long ago that victory didn't always go to the strongest. Sometimes, it went to those who were willing to think differently, to turn weakness into strength, to prove that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all.
The Kryvax expected Earth to be silent, cowed by the destruction of the lunar colony. Instead, on the 5th day of the invasion, they encountered something unprecedented. It began with a song. In every city, town, and shelter across the globe, people started humming the same melody. Nobody knew where it originated, but through the quantum consciousness network, it spread like wildfire. The Kryvax sensors registered a massive spike in quantum activity, but their analysts dismissed it as meaningless human behavior. In the Prometheus Command Center, Dr. Takashi watched the readings with growing excitement. "The resonance is perfect," she reported to Admiral Patel. 8 billion minds, synchronized through music. "We're ready for Phase 1. Lieutenant Colonel Raj Sharma, commander of India's Quantum Defense Grid, initiated the sequence. "All stations, commence quantum pulse in 3, 2, 1. The attack wasn't visible to normal sensors. There was no beam of energy, no explosive force. Instead, the combined consciousness of humanity reached out through quantum space and touched the crystalline hulls of the Kryvax ships. The effect was immediate and devastating. The living crystal technology that made their vessels so formidable began to resonate with human thought patterns. Across their fleet, systems began failing in ways their engineers couldn't comprehend. Their technology is partially organic, Naomi explained to the Defense Council, her voice tight with controlled excitement. The crystalline structures are living matrices, grown rather than built. And like all living things, they're susceptible to quantum influence. The Kryvax response was swift and brutal. Their remaining functional ships launched a barrage of energy weapons at Earth's major cities. But humanity was ready. The same quantum field that had disrupted their ships now formed an invisible shield around the planet, powered by the collective will of billions. In orbit, Commander Yuki Ishikawa led the first counterattack. The Japanese Space Defense Force had secretly maintained a fleet of quantum-enhanced fighters, hidden in plain sight as debris in low Earth orbit. Now these ships, piloted by crews linked through the quantum network, moved with impossible coordination. "All units, execute Pattern Omega," Yuki commanded. Her consciousness, merged with those of her pilots through the quantum field, allowed them to fight as a single entity. Their smaller ships danced between the massive Kryvax vessels, exploiting weaknesses that the alien commanders didn't even know existed. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Isabella Martinez, a quantum physicist working with Project Prometheus, made a startling discovery. "The Kryvax aren't just fighting our weapons," she reported. "They're fighting our entire species. Every human mind is now part of Earth's defense system. Through the quantum network, civilian populations began instinctively coordinating their actions. When Kryvax forces attempted to jam communications in North America, millions of people automatically rerouted their thoughts through the quantum field, maintaining unbreakable contact. The aliens' confusion was evident in their battle patterns. Their tactical algorithms, designed to counter conventional military responses, proved useless against an enemy that operated as a single, planet-sized consciousness. In their orbital headquarters, the Kryvax High Command faced an unprecedented situation. Their sensors showed impossible readings, human brain patterns appearing simultaneously across vast distances, quantum fields that shouldn't exist, and most disturbing of all, their own ships beginning to respond to human thought patterns. Deep beneath the Pacific, Naomi made another crucial discovery. The quantum field isn't just defensive, she announced to Admiral Patel. It's learning. Every attack the Kryvax launched teaches us more about their technology. Humanity isn't just sharing consciousness, we're evolving together, in real time. The evidence was undeniable. Across the globe, people began reporting not just shared thoughts, but shared knowledge. Factory workers instinctively understood how to modify their equipment to resist Kryvax weapons. Children drew detailed diagrams of alien technology they'd never seen. The quantum network was turning humanity into a collective intelligence far greater than the sum of its parts. But the Kryvax had one final card to play. Their flagship, a massive crystalline structure twice the size of Earth's moon, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Its purpose wasn't just to defeat Earth's military, it was designed to sever the quantum connections between human minds permanently. As the massive ship approached, humanity faced its greatest test. The question wasn't just whether they could win the battle, but whether they could maintain their unity in the face of a weapon designed to shatter their very consciousness. Time was running out. The Mindbreaker's quantum collapse device powered up, its energy signature visible even to conventional sensors. Earth had less than 3 hours before the device would trigger, destroying all quantum coherence in the solar system, and with it, all conscious life. In the Prometheus Command Center, Dr. Takashi made a startling discovery. The device isn't just targeting quantum fields, she announced, her voice tight with urgency. It's using the accumulated emotional energy from the Kryvax fleet as a catalyst. They're weaponizing their own newfound emotions. Dr. Martinez's eyes widened as she studied the data. They're not just trying to destroy us, they're trying to purge themselves of the emotions they've developed. They'd rather end everything than continue feeling. Admiral Patel's weathered face showed grim determination. Then we give them more emotion than they can handle. All stations, initiate Protocol Omega. Maximum quantum transmission. Around the world, humanity focused their collective consciousness with unprecedented intensity. But this time, they didn't project anger or defiance. Instead, they shared their most powerful memories of compassion, joy, and love. The effect on the Kryvax fleet was immediate and devastating. Ship after ship began reporting systems failures as their crystalline matrices resonated with human emotions. The living technology that formed their vessels had grown too similar to human consciousness, it could no longer resist emotional influence. Inside the Mindbreaker, chaos erupted. Crew members who had never experienced emotion in their lives suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by generations of human emotional experience. The ship's crystalline corridors began pulsing with colors that reflected the crew's emotional state. The Kryvax High Commander, facing the first emotional crisis of their existence, made a fatal error. Instead of aborting the quantum collapse, they accelerated it, hoping to end the emotional contamination before it could spread further. But Dr. Takashi had anticipated this. "Now, Isabella," she called out. Dr. Martinez activated a sequence they had dubbed the human touch. Every quantum transmitter on Earth focused on a single point, the collapse device itself. The device, designed to interact with quantum fields, couldn't distinguish between destructive and constructive interference. The combined emotional resonance of humanity poured into the device, transforming its purpose. Instead of collapsing quantum fields, it began amplifying them. The Mindbreaker's own weapon became a conduit for the very thing the Kryvax had feared most: pure, unfiltered human consciousness. Commander Yuki's fighters, still moving in their deadly dance, reported an astonishing sight. The Mindbreaker's crystalline surface began to change, becoming transparent as glass. Through its now clear walls, they could see Kryvax crew members experiencing their first tears. The High Commander, overwhelmed by newfound emotions, made one last attempt to maintain control. They initiated the flagship's self-destruct sequence. But even this failed. Their crew, now feeling loyalty and compassion for the first time, refused to carry out the order. In that moment of defiance, something unprecedented occurred. The quantum field linking humanity expanded, incorporating the Kryvax consciousness. Two species, once divided by the presence and absence of emotion, merged their awareness in a moment of universal understanding. Through this connection, humanity finally understood the Kryvax's deepest fear. They hadn't hated emotion, they had been terrified of it, having evolved without the neural structures to process complex feelings. Their campaign of destruction had been driven by fear of their own potential for emotion. The war ended not with a surrender, but with an awakening. The Kryvax, their consciousness forever altered by human contact, requested something they had never sought before: help. They needed to learn how to feel, how to process emotions that their species had never experienced. Dr. Takashi, addressing both the Defense Council and the Kryvax High Command, smiled through tears of her own. Today marks the beginning of something extraordinary. We didn't just defeat an enemy, we gained new partners in consciousness. The Kryvax sought to eliminate emotion from the galaxy. Instead, they'll help us spread it to the stars. The quantum network that had served as humanity's defense became a bridge between species. Earth's first interstellar embassy wouldn't be a building or a spacecraft, but a shared consciousness, teaching ancient warriors the power of empathy. As the Mindbreaker's crystal surface caught Earth's sunlight, it created a rainbow that stretched across the sky, a fitting symbol for the spectrum of emotions its crew was just beginning to explore. Humanity had proven that their greatest perceived weakness was, in fact, their greatest strength. The age of isolation was over. The age of shared consciousness had begun.